Today we're going to talk about the difference between goals, projects, and habits. Now this is coming from a question that someone who is using the 2024 Thriving in Motherhood Planner asked me about how to use it this year. Specifically on page 31, 2024, we added page numbers to the planner, and it has been life-changing for all of us in asking questions and talking about it in Soaring Mother Society and doing our projects and goals together. So if you have the Thriving Motherhood Planner, page 31 is what we're talking about today. If not, you're still going to have something you can glean from this because we're talking about goals, habits, and projects specifically as a mom. What is the difference? How do you use them? How do you distinguish between them? What is this distinction between them? So if this is your question, we're going to jump in today. And if you have other questions about the planner, either one's because you've been using it and you're like, how does this work? Or because you're like thinking about it, but you haven't tried it yet. And you're like, I don't know. Please ask me. I am happy to create as many podcast episodes about how to use this planner effectively as you could possibly want. So there's a link below that you can click, ask the question, ask it to me, send me an email. I'm happy to help you get the most out of your planners this year.
Hi, I'm Jessica Jackson, and this is the new way to thrive in motherhood by leaning into who you are, what you love, your unique family situation, and personal mission to create a life that you actually want to live. I want to invite you to join me in saying no to the life of the exhausted supermom, burnout, victim thinking, being pulled in so many directions, suffering through survival mode, or being lost in motherhood, and say yes to building strong families and moving forward on our greatest goals in order to create a fulfilling life that we are excited to wake up to each day and become a soaring mother. This is the Thriving in Motherhood podcast.
If you are new to planning this way, I've got two options for you. One, you can check out the 5-step piece method for planning on a video I created. I'll put the link to that below so you can check it out from here. But also there is Plan a Week You Can Win. It's a free training at thrivinginmotherhoodpodcast.com/more time. And that will walk you through a very intensive step-by-step plan on how to do this planning system that works for moms with kids at home. Whether you're homeschooling, whether you have your kids in public school, whether you are working out of the home or in the home, we have moms using it in all different phases of life. But if you're someone that needs to make massive progress in small pockets of time, which describes motherhood, you can learn more about how to do that there. So let's jump into this great question. So here's what it said. I get confused sometimes about the distinction between things like goals, quarterly versus yearly, versus projects versus habits, versus having like a big 3 that's on the weekly spread versus focus on the monthly and weekly spread and tracking also on weekly spread. Should these things be all related or not necessarily? For example, on page 31, I'm not sure what goals versus projects are. Do I choose a big goal and then break it down into projects? Are the goals and projects different? Should my daily, weekly, and quarterly goals all go back to my 10 to 12 goals for the year? I guess I'm not clear on how these things are different or if they should all be connected. Okay, so first of all, I will say every time we have someone new come into Soaring Mother Society, which I love, it's our monthly calls where we are doing this planning together, kind of getting clear about what we're focusing on this month and what we're going to do and celebrating the last month and building momentum together and just getting clarity and accountability. It's so fun. Those calls are amazing. But this is a question we get all the time because it's an adjustment. So I would say the very first thing that we've addressed over and over and over again as we've worked with moms in Soaring Mother Society is that use this how this works best for you. There are no grades. There's no right or wrong answers. There's no test or quiz on how this works. So first of all, we just need to step outside of, I want to do this perfectly school mentality that a lot of us grew up with, and know that this is a tool. It's a thing to help have spots to put ideas from your brain onto paper and move them forward to create a life you're really excited about, and not like a step-by-step, you have to do it this way, otherwise you did it wrong. Okay, so that's the very first thing. Use this as a tool in the way that it works best for you in your season of life, because this is a perfect framework that fits and scales with you, whether you're in survival mode or whether you're crushing it. So you're going to use it differently. I use it so differently depending on where I'm at. Okay, that's the first thing. All right, so let's break this down. So projects are things with multiple steps that you want to have happen. So for example, this year on my list, I've got creating a family meal binder. I have family yearbooks that I have family yearbooks that I'm making, and I want them to be up to date. I want to plant raspberries, which I tried and it died, so I have to figure that out. And then we want to plant a medicinal and herb, like eating garden, culinary, that's the word, medicinal and culinary herb garden and we want to get, clear out our garden pathways and build a rock climbing wall for our garden. Those are projects that I want to do. There's multiple steps for them. They're things that I want to, create for our home and for our family. So those are my projects. Goals are a little bit more personal and stretching. They're things that are intentionally in the growth zone for me. They're intentionally uncomfortable, and it's going to require me to become something different to do that thing. So for me this year, I wrote down goals, three goals for the year. I want to write a book. It's coming. I've started. I want to do more community service as a family and get my kids, instead of signing us up for loads of extracurriculars, instead find ways that we can serve more. And I want to do cooking with the kids more often. My original idea was having a cooking camp, but reality is they're just cooking a lot with me in the kitchen right now. Those were my 3 goals for this year. And can I add to them? Yes. It says 10 to 12 goals for the year. We're only at the end, we're just starting quarter 2. And so I knew that these were 3 things that I wanted to do. If it takes me a year to do these 3 things, great. As I progress through the year though, I can add more to this list. I'd like to think some people get stressed by this page that we have here and try and fill all out at once. Like, okay, 10 to 12 goals for the year. What am I going to do? But I really encourage you to not do that. You can either do it as a retroactive thing, as a really high level overview of what happened this year. Or what I like to do is I have these quarter goal pages, right? So every quarter I have a spot to kind of brain dump and figure out what it is that possibly could happen this quarter. And as I brainstorm it and think about it and puzzle it together with what our life looks like every 90 days, because it's changing and I have way more information now than I did at the start of the year for my next quarter, then I come in and I write down those things that I want to be doing. So you can do it every 90 days, come in here and add to it. And by the end of the year, you'll kind of see what you were hoping to do. You can come back in every 90 days and wrote down what you did in the previous 90 days. And if you have just so much clarity and without any doubt what you want to do for that year, you can also brainstorm it out. But I find that could become very overwhelming and demotivating, both for myself and the people that I've worked with. Okay, now the habits category, I like to think of that as things that I want to be doing every day. Little ways that I want to grow every single day to become something, to become someone. So for me this year, and the things that I wanted to work on were prepping for the next day. Know what's happening the day before, know what's coming up, so that in the evening, instead of just puttering around on who knows what, I can spend 20 minutes getting the next day ready better. Figuring out our financial system. So I wrote budgeting and tracking down. I've actually read this book called I Will Teach You to Be Rich. It's phenomenal. It's the best money book I've ever read, and I've read a lot of them. And so it's slightly different than what I was originally thinking I'd have to do. But anyway, so figuring that as my financial habits, I would say. Exercising daily. And reading with a commonplace book. So I'm writing thoughts down from what I'm reading. I am reading a ton. I have not started the commonplace book yet, but that's okay because the year's not over. But those would be, the example daily habits, right? Doing these things are little things I want to do every day that help me become. The projects are things I'm creating for my family. And the 10 to 12 goals for the year are things that are stretching me intentionally in new ways. Those projects aren't necessarily new. Some of them are new. They definitely require me to learn new things. Family yearbooks, though, I've been doing it. I just have to work the system, right, and get it done. Okay. So now that we've kind of got a little bit of a distinction between those 3 things, again, do it. If your brain's no, I totally thought projects for this, and great, you can do that. But if you're my brain doesn't know, then that's how my brain thinks about it. If you are already thinking of it a different way that's working for you, great. You cannot do this wrong. Okay. So now as far as logistics, how do you take it from this page and then spread it through? Because for those of you that aren't familiar with the planner or are still new to it and trying to get familiar with it, we've got a couple of places here. So you have the goals and habits at a glance on page 31. Then if you turn the page, you start getting into the section of quarter goals. So you have quarter 1 goals, and then you have goal planning pages, and then quarter 2 goals and some goal planning pages. Okay. I don't use the goal planning pages for everything that I do. And goal planning is maybe not the right word here. Maybe we need to think this through for next year. Maybe I just need to call them planning pages, but because sometimes I use that goal planning page for a project, and sometimes I use that goal planning page for a habit, and sometimes I use it for a goal, and sometimes I don't use it at all because I'm doing it a different way. So for example, one of my projects was yearbooks. So here in my goal planning page, I've kind of tracked out what yearbooks I've done, which kids have which ones, and which ones I need to update. But I also have a goal to write in the Thriving Motherhood journal every day for 30 days. And so I kept track of that on one of these goal planning pages. Okay. So it's very customizable. This is customizable. I want you to think this is a framework and templates to work with your life. Okay. Now, another area that you can have these goals is on your monthly pages. So every time you come to this monthly page, monthly spread here, every 30 days, you're going to get this monthly page. And you're going to see projects and goals on there. Now, when I'm looking at my monthly page and I'm thinking about my projects and goals, projects are the things that I want to be moving forward. Now, some of them are definitely coming from my 10 to 12 goals for the year, my projects, and my habits that I wrote as part of this vision and my quarterly planning. And some of them are going to be things that are just coming up that need to happen in our life. So February, one of the things I wrote down was to order seeds, right? So I'm gonna break things down. Instead of write plant medicinal culinary herb garden under my projects, I'm going to think, okay, what's the next step that I could do in the next 30 days to move this forward? And ordering seeds was one of them. Now, under the goals section, that's often where I'm writing what my habit is going to be that I'm working on, my daily habit that I'm doing, kind of that becoming area. So that is kind of how I distinct between those two things. And the focus, since that was brought up, that's separate from the projects, the goals, the habits. It can't be. So for you, you might be like, essentialism. This is the one thing I'm going to really focus on for the next 30 days. And I'm going to write that my focus is to do this thing. And anytime I have free time or extra energy or whatever, I'm doing this thing. And that's great. What I often like to use that focus for, though, is a scripture, a thought, a mindset, who I'm working on becoming just as a person. And it probably has nothing to do with being productive, okay? It probably has everything to do with who I want to become. And other times, it's helping me focus on the season that I'm in. So when we talk about that 5-step path from surviving to thriving, sometimes I just write re-entry. Like if we just, like when we got back from our Utah trip, I'm just trying to get like re-entered. And so I know like, no, I'm not going to do tons of projects right now. Yes, I'm feeling crazy. It's because I'm in re-entry and it's hard. So I use that depending on how I need it. It helps me remind me the season that I'm in. You know, okay, you're in survival mode. So remember all of those wonderful tricks that you can use when you're in survival mode so that it's not so hard and not make it harder for yourself. Or yes, you're in reentry. Or hey, we're in normalizing. Yeah, it's not very glamorous to start getting dishes and laundry under control again. That's okay. That's what we're going to do right now. You know, or no, it's time for me to explore. I'm losing my mind. It's time to do something new and different and mix it up. So you can use it like that as a framing. You can put the scripture down. Lots of options. Now, when it comes to this weekly spread, because again, we've got on the bottom here, if you look at a weekly spread, I don't know why I'm in February, but anyway, here we are. I've got, you've got your goals down here that you can do daily tracking for. You've got the focus that you can write on that spot. And then up along the top, you've got big 3s that you can be focusing on here. Okay. So the way that this works, if we're tying it all together, at the beginning of a quarter, I'm writing out these projects, these goals, these habits that I want to do. I don't necessarily have all 3. Maybe I'm focusing just on one category. Whatever season of life you're in, it works. Okay, but this is a process. So I'm taking those projects and goals. Then when I sit down for my month, I already have an idea of what I'm doing for the quarter. When I sit down for the month, I'm going to look over that. And I'm going to look at what are the things that have to happen in our life that are just coming up. Are there doctor's appointments, dentist appointments? Like what are those things that are scheduled because we're humans and things are happening, right? End of the year school parties, whatever it is. Then I'm going to look at those 10 to 12 quarters, all of my goals, projects, habits, and say, okay, what can I make progress on and move forward on in the next 30 days? And so that's what I'm doing. I'm going to pick a few things. I'm going to break it down. And then when I'm doing my weekly planning, now I'm switched to a new page, and along that big 3 for the week, I'm going to try and pick at least one thing that I selected on my monthly page to move forward on my week. Sometimes I can do way more than one. Sometimes one is barely, we're barely scraping by. But the nice thing about that is those 3 things that I'm doing might also include the kid's birthday party or the PTA meeting, whatever those things that are taking time and energy in your day, those big 3, I think of them as I can do 3 extra things this week beyond the base level, necessities that we have to do to keep ourselves fed and clothed and alive, right? And so these are the 3 extra things I'm going to do this week. For me, homeschool, when I have homeschool weeks, homeschool is always one of my big 3. It takes time, right? And so for me, that kind of leaves 2 variables. So if we have a lot going on in our life, then moving my projects and goals forward, like it's going to be one thing. That's it. And some weeks it's like there's something happening big with projects and goals and everything else kind of drops off. And that's what I'm doing. But what this helps you do is see, instead of just going on how you're feeling, like everything feels wrong, or I don't feel like I'm making progress, I don't feel like this, you have actual data written down to see and analyze and evaluate and see, okay, I'm feeling really weird. Why is that? Oh, all I've been doing is like doctor's appointments and housework and school, and we haven't had any, like I haven't been making progress on my goals. I need to do that for me to stay alive, right? To feel good, to feel growth, to feel momentum. Like I need to move that forward. And so the next week you're gonna be like, you know what? What are we going to cut out so that I have time to plug in something that's important to me on one of my projects and goals? And so you can really use that to help guide you and educate you on why you're feeling the way that you're feeling. And then to also pivot and make choices, because there's no such thing as like this perfectly balanced week. I like to think of it as a pretty balanced year or a pretty balanced quarter. You know, we move things forward in broad sweeps, but when you do a little bit every week, it does progress in really magnificent, beautiful, miraculous ways and adds up over time. When it comes to those daily goal tracking, when I'm doing habits every day, that I want to check off and say like, yes, I did it, I use that on the weekly spread. When I set a 30-day challenge for myself, it was more fun for me to pick a goal planning page and create my own 30 boxes that I could check off so I could see like the big overview all at once. But if I don't care about that, I just want to be like, yeah, I did it. Then that goal tracking page on my week works. And then that focus box on my week might be one of two things. One, I might have just written what I wrote for the month onto that focus. So I'm seeing it on my weekly spread and I'm being reminded that this is what it is and this is what's happening. Or it's going to be the mindset, the scripture, the thing that I need that's going to help carry me through my week. So that is, I think, covered your question, which is a phenomenal one. And let me just end with this. You do not have to do all of this at once, okay? And I've done many episodes about this, but like when you're in survival mode, I'm not worrying about this stuff, okay? I've got the goals and projects written down so they're there so that when I start to kind of perk up again when we leave survival mode, I can go back and refer to them. But like if we're just making it through a week, I'm not going back and being like, what sounds good right now? You know, like that's not where my brain's at when I'm in true survival mode. That being said, if we're in survival mode for a long time and it's just like reduced energy or things like that, then I do go look, because then I can keep making baby step progress when I know what the thing is that matters to me. So those like crazy 3-4 day survival modes where you're like, what's happening? Nah, it gets set down. Or if I'm on a trip, it gets set down. But on those weeks where, no, this is the season we're in and it's just going to be a hard one for a while, I keep moving things forward, and I can do it because I have such great clarity from my quarter to my month to my week. But the other thing is, again, don't feel like you have to do all the things. If you're like, I don't know what my goals are. Like maybe you just have one habit that you want to work on. Great. Use that system for the habit. Or maybe you just have one project you want to work on. Great. Use this system for that project. It will scale with you. It scales up, it scales down. But it provides just that way, because again, one of the things that I did when I was creating this planner, and the thing that I struggled with is I would see all these ideas, I'd see all this inspiration that of like how I wanted my life to be, but I didn't know how to go from seeing this thing to actually translating it to action. And so this method, this system helps you take that like, oh, that's a cool thing, I would like that more in my life, to actually being able to bring it into your life and to execute all of those steps that it's required to incorporate that into who you are, what your family culture, things you create, things you have, things you do. So any other questions that you have about the planner, about this topic, please, if you're watching on YouTube, leave comments below. I'm happy to answer and help you there. And if you have another question about the planner you want addressed in depth, please click that Ask a Question podcast or button in the comments, and I am happy to help you with this. This is something where not only has it completely changed my life as I continue to do this, even with my crazy health challenges and just the craziness of our life right now, but I have also now for 3.5 years been working with women, who have been using this planner. and seen their lives completely transform with these tools in huge, dramatic, and miraculous ways. But it happened in teeny tiny baby steps by doing this week after week and month after month, pausing when you need to pause and picking up again when you can. And for all of them, everyone that I've worked with, we've had these seasons of pausing and survival and stopping and feeling like, oh, it's over. But then you pick it back up and you keep going. And having a 3.5-year view of what this has done for women who just commit to this process the best they can and do it the best way they know how is incredible. So I hope you have a great week, and I will talk to you next week.
Today's episode is brought to you by the Thriving in Motherhood Planner. With this simple system, creating a life you love is as simple as opening your planner and grabbing a pen. Every day with the Thriving in Motherhood Planner, you will know what to do next, what's most important, and what to fill those pockets of time on. You won't find yourself wandering around the house wondering what to do when the kids are playing nicely for a few minutes. You'll be able to fill that effectively with moving forward on the things that matter to you. Follow the Thriving in Motherhood Planner's research-based system so that you can move forward on the things that matter to you, no matter the season of life that you are in. I'd love to help you get on a better path, one that leads to peace and confidence in your unique life with the Thriving in Motherhood Planner. Learn more today at thrivinginmotherhoodpodcast.com/planner.
Where you are planted, watch the blossoms grow.